Hey guys, this is going to be maybe one of the last videos of Tibet with Jinjing and the crew. It's our last day. Tomorrow we're leaving.
Early flight.
We're doing a pretty important live stream, which everybody except for me has dressed up for. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna serve as the person who makes you guys look better.
Thank you.
But the purpose of this video isn't so much about this trip, although I definitely need to, let's see if we can jump in here.
Ooh, okay.
This is more about a curiosity about your job and some of the stuff that you've done.
Oh,
and
okay, cool.
One thing in particular is that when we were watching a video, I should have looked it up. It's, I can't believe I forget his handle name. Bay Area 416, I think it is, a video by him. And he is my favorite underrated YouTuber. He's an attorney from California. And he really deeply understands China. He's read a lot of books. He's a big fan of CGTN also. And we were in the car watching one of his videos, and I'll link it in the description here. I think I'm pointing this too far down. But when you guys were in the car, you and Surprise,
we were so excited.
You were so excited every time he was playing a clip, especially if you had some involvement in it.
Yeah.
And the topic of that clip was about poverty alleviation. And there was a journalist that was in that, a foreign journalist, who maybe is a lot like other people who, even though he was in China, he thought poverty alleviation was just kind of like a, you know, like a catchphrase kind of a thing until he went. So I want you to talk about a little bit more about his experiences and the social workers behind this poverty alleviation effort.
Okay, so the video where Daniel gonna put it in the link, you can have a look. It's a documentary. So all the crew, even included the main character Nadim in this video, they are all my close colleagues and my friends. So we had a lot of conversations about their experience. So it's part of our series pack. It's called Job Challenge. So we invite someone to experience one unique job in China. So my friend Nadim experienced a job as this poverty alleviation commissioner in the last battlefield for China's poverty alleviation, Daliangshan, in a very remote area in Sichuan. So he spent weeks shadowing those poverty alleviation commissioners, doing what they do, communicating with the villagers. So I had a lot of conversation with him, so I kind of speaking for him here in this video. Be careful, there's a car. But if you like, I will invite him someday in the future to share more about this experience. But it's just this guy has been living in China for so many years. He studied in the university and then worked for 6 or 7 years. Although he heard poverty alleviation so many times, but still seeing that extreme poverty is still shocking. That poverty, if you look at those, if you have a chance to check those documentaries, you can see that extreme poverty. It's hard to imagine. There's no running water, there's no flushing toilets, there's not enough food. Their main food is potatoes. So, and even in such a remote, a poor village, anything that we think that is normal, ethically, morally, anything we value doesn't exist there. We think education is important. We think you shouldn't beat your kids. Those normal things.
Well, that's where the social workers come in, right?
Yeah.
So the social workers, that was the most interesting part of the story, is these government social workers, what their responsibilities are, how long they have to live there, their sacrifices they make, and the kinds of things. Because you were saying before, what was interesting for me was that you were talking about the poverty alleviation isn't over once they've been raised out of poverty. They still remain there, and their job is to answer all and any question these people have, to make sure that they don't fall back into poverty, teaching them how to build their houses, fix their houses, how not to raise their kids, You know, because some of these people are, you know, they have no idea. Like there was a really sad story about the guy, right? He lost his parents when he was like 8 years old or whatever it was. So he had no idea how to raise children.
Yeah.
And
so,
the 14-year-old boy, you can talk about him.
Okay, so first is how difficult those commissioners' job is. Like this year, 2020, is China's goal to finish all the poverty. Every poor family should be above poverty line. So everybody thought, okay, so after 2020, the poverty alleviation commissioner's job is done. But actually not. They have to continue to stay there for 1 or 2 years to make sure those poor families don't go back to poverty again. They have to make sure they're not just, it's just not just like a number. There's so many things to do. And their job, commissioner's job, is basically like a nannies for those villagers. And they keep telling all the villagers, if you have any questions, you can ask us. You can call me anytime, 24/7. So when they say any questions, it literally means any questions. For example, why my cow is sick, why my roof is damaged by the rain, why my kids don't want to go to school, how should I teach my kids, why this stove won't hit, just any tiny questions. So they would make a call to those commissioners anytime they want. So basically those commissioners works 24/7 for at least 2 or 3 years.
Leaving their own family behind also.
Yeah. They are from the big cities. They're from like get used to like what we have now. But they are going to the extreme poverty. They don't have that many chance to meet their kids. So they are leaving their families behind to make sure the entire village can get out of poverty.
Right, yeah. And I mean, some of them even end up having shorter lifespans because of that, the harsh conditions they're living in, right?
Yeah.
There were kind of stories about that too. But going back to that story, I mean, the importance of, you know, so that guy, the story of the guy in the government office, he beat his 14-year-old child in front of everybody there. And he stopped talking to everybody. He completely shut down because that was complete humiliation for him. And these are the kinds of things that these social workers need to say. Listen, this is not how you do things. So there's the big important jobs like that. And then there's the small ones, like how do I fix the roof of my house? So when you leave there, you know that these people aren't going to be falling back into poverty.
I had a lot of conversation with Nadim, so I'm gonna paraphrase what he told me because he told me after that experience, those months spent in Daliangshi, actually he's still there now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's still there now because it's I think half a year or a year later after they did the documentary. So they went back to the village to check how are they doing now after a year. And because 2020, so are they gonna be above the poverty line this year? So they're still there now. I'm gonna have another deep conversation with him. But after he came back from the last journey, he talked to me like he's a changed man after the experience, and there were so many things shocked him. And there's one particular villagers, they met, just like so complicated stories, because they were supposed to go to the school to check how the school is doing. On the way to the school, they find lost kids, but that the kids shouldn't be there. He wasn't at school, so they asked him, "Why are you here?" And then so they had to walk the kids back home, back to his parents, and so the kids basically ran away from the school. So they finally find the father, and the father was so angry at the kids. Why are you not at school? But the father didn't know how to communicate with his son. He's angry, but he's like.
And his own parents, like we were saying, died when he was young.
Yeah, he beat. The thing is, he beat this kid in front of everyone, in front of this local government's office buildings. So many people there. He beat the kids. So after he beat him, the kids just shut down, didn't talk to anyone, didn't talk to like all the reporters or villagers, no matter how hard they tried. So everybody knows, like all the Nadim and all the cameraman, all the crew know he shouldn't be the kid. So they went to talk to the father. Well, try to educate him. Well, you should talk to him, let him open, ask him what's the reason he didn't go to school. You shouldn't beat him. Right. The father. So during the conversation with the father, they find out the reason the father didn't know how to communicate with the son is the father lost his parents when he was 8. So when he was growing up, no one actually talked to him how to take care of other people, what's love.
Yeah.
How to communicate with people.
I think even in ordinary circumstances, a lot of the older generation of Chinese parents don't really know how to show love.
Yeah.
And then when it's compounded by the fact that this kid didn't have, now man didn't have anybody guiding him as he was growing up, that just kind of intensifies the situation.
Yeah. So like they find that during the journey, they find one problem, and then there were so many layers of the problem. So they have to went through the root of the problem. They have to give this consolation to the father first.
Yeah, counseling.
Yeah, let him open up and teach him how to educate kids, and then gradually give some counseling to the kids. Let him gradually open up.
Right.
And also, I think another thing amazed me is how the government are providing the education to those poor villages. Because I think we all believe education is the key to get people forever out of poverty. You cannot just, for those people who Chinese government who are doing the poverty alleviation, they're not just giving free money to those people.
Yeah.
No, that won't solve the problem.
No.
To forever solve the problem, educate the kids, make sure they have some skills, some knowledge. So that's the long-term goal. So they build some schools in those villages. But in those areas, because their parents don't have education, they don't think education is important. So nobody in the village send their kids to the school that the government built. So one thing they did to try to attract other kids to school is to provide free meal, free lunch. If you come to school, we have a free lunch with all nutritions. That village is so poor that the parents can barely feed their kids. So if the school can provide a free meal, that's such a relief for all the parents.
Then they're sending them for the free meal, not for the education. But as a result, their kids are getting educated also.
Yeah.
Now, it's amazing. I mean, obviously here in Tibet, we saw some of that too in terms of different programs, getting some of the local craftsmen online, selling their product, not taking any commissions from them, connecting them with buyers and stuff like that. It's clear there's a massive effort going on in China. And so the really thing, the good thing, that would be an interesting video for even Chinese people to see, because this Bay Area 415 guy, I just looked it up, 415, not 416. 416 is the area code of my city I used to grow up in Toronto. But anyways, it's seeing the reaction of an American who takes an honest look at what's going on.
Yeah.
And the reaction is, holy crap. How can we, it's talking about America, as the most powerful nation in the world, not be being able to do the similar kind of a thing? Why are we spending money on this kind of, bombing other countries or, occupying other countries? That was the most honest, raw reaction I saw. And you saw him, sometimes he was putting his head down in his hand, just saying, what is going on?
I really appreciate his effort, though. He knows a lot about China, even than a lot of Chinese, I think.
Yeah, I think he does.
Yeah.
I think he does. No, definitely. As I said, one of my favorite underrated YouTubers. He's an attorney, but he keeps himself anonymous. And I'm going to be doing some collaborations with him, and I haven't talked to him about why, but I can imagine why. Because anybody who's positive about China, you get targeted. Yeah. But the other story I really liked from just learning about the journalism you guys do was the most touching story that you've worked on. And so what was that?
Wow, it's the Wuhan story.
Yeah, very emotional.
Every time I brought up this Wuhan story, I don't know, I got a little bit emotional.
Okay, well, let's take a little bit of a walk. Let's take a little bit of a walk, and
I'll be okay. So from February to late April, you guys will know that's the time that Wuhan was on lockdown because it was hit by COVID-19. So I went to Wuhan as a journalist during Wuhan was entirely locked down, and it was I spent 73 days in Wuhan. So I met a lot of people, including doctors, patients, families of the died patients, volunteer workers. So I did so many stories, there's so many touching stories, but there's one guy, I spent almost a month following him, documenting his family stories. So this guy, his name is Wang Jiang, his parents were infected and passed away during Chinese New Year. His parents actually were sent to hospital on the Spring Festival's Eve, 大年30, were sent to hospital and passed away 10 days later. But he and his wife were infected as well. and went to hospital in 2 different hospitals. So he didn't have the chance to meet his parents for the one last time. But when the 4 grown-ups were in hospital, there's still 4-year-old daughter and a 1-month-old son in his family. So his wife got infected after 1 month, gave birth to their son. It is just like such a horrible story, tragic happened to this family. Sorry, I think someone called me.
They're asking where we are?
Maybe, it just called me.
Hey, surprise, we're just filming a short video and we'll be up in about 10 minutes.
Okay. So, like, after following him for a month, I couldn't understand how he still not collapsed.
We'll start walking back as we're getting called for our live stream. But yeah, keep going. Sorry.
Like I was just surprised. Why are you still like not committing suicide? Because such a like huge tragedy, and then eventually after his parents passed away, he and his wife were recovered and released from a hospital. And you thought, okay, the tragedy is over, but no. The worst part he told me is actually after they recovered. Because after they recovered from COVID-19, both of them suffered from this post like PTSD. Yeah. Because
well, by this time he already lost his parents, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like he should be the one collapsed, but no, actually his wife, because the something like a mental problem after she gave birth, and also suffered from COVID-19.
Yeah, I mean that's a common thing after giving birth to begin with, to have these kinds of breakdowns.
Yeah.
To have COVID-19 on top of it. Losing your parents-in-law in her case, I mean, it would just emphasize the situation.
So his wife constantly worrying about he's not fully recovered. Maybe I'm the one giving this to my to my parents-in-law. Maybe I will give this to my son. So constantly worrying about this. So and eventually she tried to commit suicide several times.
Right.
Really want to jump from the building. So this husband has to try to
keep his strength.
Yeah, and have tried to look for help. So and he told me, I thought the worst time was when I lost my parents, but actually after we got out from the hospital was the worst time. So I spent a month documenting their life. But like you thought after being through such a huge tragedy, he would be pissed at everybody, because his parents got sick during the worst time in Wuhan. There were no beds in hospital. He actually kneeled down in front of one hospital, begging for everyone for a bed. And of course, during the lockdown, when there are not enough people, probably they wouldn't get sometimes occasionally they wouldn't get food enough, or in time.
Yeah,
delivering groceries. Maybe the community workers didn't bring the food to their door in time. I asked him, because I expect him to say, are you pissed at the community workers? Are you pissed at the doctors? If he said yes, I would totally understand. Yeah. But he said no. I said, why? You should be pissed. So he said, Wuhan was in such a difficult time.
Crisis, yeah.
Yeah. What would they do? What can they do? They put themselves, those doctors, those community workers, put themselves in danger to make sure we have food.
Right.
And those doctors, local doctors, they've never seen COVID-19. They've never seen something like this. They didn't know how to treat COVID-19 patients. Like this, they already put themselves in front of this battlefield. How can you ask someone else to sacrifice their lives for your family? So he had no complaints about everyone.
Yeah.
That shocked me. And then I interviewed him again because Wuhan revised the numbers of the infected cases and the death numbers. Yeah,
there was that one big spike because there were some people who had passed away at home.
Yeah.
Who didn't.
Who didn't have time to go to hospitals or those worst times. So his parents wasn't in the number in the first place.
So they got put into those.
They got put in. So I asked him your parents wasn't included in numbers. That means you had to pay all the fee yourself in the beginning.
Yeah.
Were you pissed? And it's no. Why?
Because everybody who had COVID-related stuff, that it was all free, right?
Yeah, all covered by.
But because they weren't registered as that, they didn't get. Yeah.
It's just very early stage.
Yeah.
So he said that's early stage. Like all the nurses and doctors were busy saving people. So definitely there will be, and like you saw some footages how packed those hospitals are.
Yeah.
So definitely there were some people wasn't being counted, being included because they're busy saving other ones.
Yeah.
So he understood, and also after his parents like eventually putting the numbers, he said, yeah, that's fair, then I understand, I have no complaints. And I also followed him to pick up his parents' urns, to buy tombs for his parents, to bury his parents' urns. And I know he must have suffered so much mental, he put so much to himself. So he told me the same stories like 10 times, but he's still gonna cry. Each time he's gonna cry.
Yeah.
And my friends told me you probably helped him to not collapse because he needed a way to let it out. Yeah. So maybe I was interviewing him, spend time with him. It's a way for him to tell the story.
You were saying the journalists doing the editing back in Beijing were also crying when they were watching the video.
Yeah. So like this video, he showed me a tour around his parents' house. There was so much things that you just couldn't plan. So,
you didn't think it was going to be that interesting. You thought, okay, going to the parents' house.
So this is just his parents' house. So like when we enter, there's some papers on the table. It's the menu of each day of the Chinese New Year. What his mother gonna cook every day, because both his parents were teachers when they were alive. They want to invite their students to their house every day during the Chinese New Year. So you can see her mother's writing each day what she's gonna cook. And then she hold up the papers and she said, we're never gonna have the chance to have this Chinese New Year's meal. And so he suddenly like shaking and crying. And then he lead me to the balcony, because his father really loved to plant all kinds of like flowers or plants. So in the refrigerator, there were so many seeds in the bags. And on each bag, it says the date. His father already planned the whole year 2020, what he gonna plant all this year in 2020.
Yeah.
So he just randomly grabbed one bag, and on this bag it says February the 4th, 2020. And he told me, oh, okay. And my father wanted to plant this seed on February the 4th. And then he paused a second, and he said, and my father died in February the 3rd. And that moment, it shook me so hard. Me and my cameraman were shaking. We almost gonna cry behind the camera. And he was crying. And then he went to the refrigerator again and grabbed some dumplings, frozen dumplings. And he said, oh, this is the dumplings my mother's made. We want to eat it during the Chinese New Year. And he was also crying. I asked him, are you gonna eat those dumplings? He said, of course, why not? Whenever I miss her, I will eat several dumplings. And that's just, you cannot plan all this.
No.
It's just a true story of a true family who suffered the most in the former epicenter of COVID-19. And he suffered so much, but he's so positive.
Yeah.
He tried to be strong, because he told me I cannot collapse because I still have a daughter and a son.
And then the wife, who was in a very rough condition mentally.
Yeah, now they are all well. Good news is that this family lives really well now. It's good.
The wife is fully recovered.
Fully recovered.
Yeah.
You know, what was the main thing that made the wife recover? One is he dragged her to the hospital to do this antibody test. And she has the antibody. That means
she had it.
She recovered. Second, Wuhan announced the lockdown will be lifted on April the 8th.
Yeah.
So that's a sign of hope. When she heard the news,
that helped her.
Yeah, Wuhan is getting better, because she thought the lockdown is gonna be there's no end.
Right.
So it's oh, Wuhan is getting better. So she suddenly became much better.
That's really nice. Yeah. But what an emotional roller coaster, though. I mean, when you were telling that story, I can't remember who it was. They were saying that this is one of the things that we're being called up, aren't we, for our live stream? We're going to be doing a live stream.
Oh, they want to ask you to go upstairs to film the documentary. Okay. So,
okay. The intro.
Also, we need to get ready for the
yeah, to wrap this up then, when you were telling that story, I can't remember who it was talking about, saying that the journalists are the neglected ones in terms of emotional support, because you guys see this stuff and you go through such a rough time. I mean, even your colleague who's seeing the poverty alleviation, I mean, that must have been an amazingly intense emotional experience. But you guys just got to keep trucking on.
Yeah, but you know what, like when I was in Wuhan, like I felt I was okay. I keep seeing like horrible things, but I still like I wasn't like suffering from mental problem at all. Yeah. I felt okay. But the moment I realized maybe there's some trauma to me was after I came back to Beijing. I finished all my quarantines, 3-week quarantines. I went back to the office. I was talking to my colleagues. Actually, the Nadim, the guy who is in poverty alleviation, because we haven't met each other for months. He's in Beijing, kind of like a lockdown. I was in a lockdown in Wuhan. So while we were greeting each other, we were chatting. We were so happy to chatting and messing around. And he suddenly asked me, okay, so how are you? Are you okay? How's Wuhan? And when I was trying to answer the question, I suddenly had a mental breakdown and cried in the office.
Yeah.
I wasn't a crying person at all. I never cried in front of anybody. But that moment, I just couldn't stop myself. I was crying in the middle of the office to him. And I just told him, I don't know why. I don't know what's happening to me. So, and at that moment, I realized, oh, okay, maybe there's some problem. So yeah, and then after that, of course, I keep talking to people, keep sharing my experiences, stories, by talking to different kinds of people.
And that helped you also by letting it out.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because that's exactly what your colleague said, that probably helped the guy that you were following around too.
Yeah.
Being able to speak it out. But anyways, we have a live stream to go do now, which is our kind of final trip summary. But thank you for sharing those stories. I think seeing the inside, hearing the inside behind the scenes kind of experiences while you're covering these stories is something that's not really thought about or maybe even appreciated that much. I mean, people can of course go online and see these documentaries. If you can send me the links for them after, I'll share them in the description. For both the poverty alleviation and the Wuhan one. I haven't actually seen all of them yet also, but
I will send all of that to you.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Make sure you watch.
Okay guys, well, I hope you enjoyed the trip. We're going for our live stream and I will catch you in the next video. Peace.